Do you think rich people should be taxed more?
In a country like India where there's a lot of income disparity, I think yes.
One school of thought in economics says that simply get rid of income taxes. We don't need any taxes. So what is your view on that?
I would like to disagree on this.
So what percentage of people pay direct taxes in India? Let's say income tax.
Approximately 6% of the population files and 0.5% of the population actually pays.
I mean, income tax, I don't think 0.5%. It's not that low.
0.5 is too low.
0.5 is too low.
May I come in?
Yes. Have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Vedant. Can you tell us something about yourself?
So, hi, my name is Vedant and I'm an accounting and finance graduate. I'm basically from Mumbai. I've always been keen on numbers, and which explains my specialization of graduation. But earlier in graduation, I realized I'm also more intrigued by what processes and people go behind deriving those numbers. And I've explored this through my leadership roles at the Rotaract Club. First as the treasurer, where I explored the finance and operations part of it, and later as chairman membership, where I explored the people part of it. Apart from Rotaract, I've been the HOD for technicals department at TEDx of my college. And apart from these extracurricular activities, I am a beginner level tabla player, for which I've also given the Prarambhik exam. Owing to this musical interest of mine, I've had the privilege to participate and win multiple inter-college cultural competitions as well as a band member. Apart from music, I also like to read non-fiction books, and my short-term goal is to transfer this discipline of mine into an MBA program, which in turn will give me a foundation for my long-term career goal in business consulting, finance, or strategy roles.
So what is your favorite book?
I'm currently reading Dopamine Detox, which is my current favorite.
So what is it all about?
It's the underlying principle it starts the book with is that in today's day and age, our attention is our most valuable asset, and I'm trying to optimize on that.
So what's your view on the budget?
Budget has been a little not underwhelming, but silent, because there are no headline news as such, but there are minor changes that the government is bringing in multiple sectors to sustain long-term growth,
Such as?
such as the infrastructure boost that they are giving by allocating 12 lakh crores to there. There is a new major change for the orange economy, that is the animation, video graphics and comics, where the government has promised around 15,000 colleges and 15,000 schools and 500 colleges to be able to cater to people who are interested in these domains. Apart from that, in the finance domain, the direct taxation, there has not been much changes, apart from the securities transaction tax, which has been risen sharply.
So what percentage of people pay direct taxes in India? Let's say income tax.
Income tax, I'm not very sure, but approximately 6% of the population files, and out of that, 0.5% of the population actually pays.
So 0.5% is what you say. Okay. You mentioned you were associated with Rotaract Club in your college.
Correct.
So when you say professional development coordinator and director, what's your exact role? What do you do?
So there are various avenues in the Rotaract Club. Let's say club service, community service, and professional development is one of them. We help members to gain professional skills, and these are basically college children who are members. So skills like public speaking, communication, a little bit of those things. We help them learn those things, but in a non-academic way, maybe through events and competitions that we organize.
And how do you know whether what you are doing is it meaningful or not for the end user?
Okay, so I have been on the member side of it, and I have participated in various events, which led me to become a little more social and extroverted, and that's how I think we cater to those people.
No, but how do you know the programs that you do? How do you measure the effectiveness of those programs?
So firstly, to define what they want to learn, we have forms that are circulated, which have, let's say, communication, public speaking, or some soft skills that they want to develop. And based on the preference of people, we organize events that cater to those skills. And post the event is done, we have a feedback that we get from members in terms of how impactful or what insights they got from it.
Okay. And you're also part of the TEDx in your college.
Yeah.
So, considering so many colleges do TEDx, do you think it is losing importance? It is becoming very common.
I don't think so. Because I think TEDx is a very good platform for people to get insights into various fields of their interest. And in terms of losing relevance, I feel talk shows won't lose their relevance, especially some things like TEDx, because people are always willing to learn something new.
Okay. Why was original TED started? What is the full form of TED?
I'm not sure.
Do you want to take a guess? And why is it called TEDx? Why not something else?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And why was it started?
I'm not sure again.
Okay. All right. You mentioned running. So training through regular endurance runs. So what's the typical distance that you cover?
So I've just started like a month back, and so I'm doing 5 to 4 kilometers twice a week.
Okay. And what do you think about when you are running?
So it's majorly music going on, but after a point when the run is done and the dopamine goes away, there is a lot of clarity that I face in terms of there's a lot of decluttering in my brain, which is...
So considering you also mentioned dopamine detox sometime back, the book that you're reading.
Yeah.
How does it actually work? So what's the role of dopamine?
So primarily it was dopamine is a hormone which is responsible for giving you rewards for finishing a certain task. And what happens is in this day and age when we have so many things that stimulate us in terms of social media or anything and everything that goes around us, the dopamine level that one requires to get that reward is increasing day by day, and it is sort of an addiction. So if one is able to understand how and what are the sources of their dopamine, they can effectively manage their attention.
So you using music while running, is it in a way affecting the dopamine release?
Yes, it does.
So is it helpful? Is it not helpful?
It is helpful, I think.
Okay. When did you realize that you're keen on accounts and finance?
Back when I was in my 11th and 12th.
Okay. And what's your favorite subject within accounting and finance?
Taxation.
Why taxation?
I think taxation is prospective in terms of accounting is either retrospective because we are just noting down what all has happened, the transaction that has occurred. But tax, I feel, is prospective. You have to strategize, you have to set up interest rates or taxation rates by trying to preempt what's happening or what impact it will create.
Do you think rich people should be taxed more?
In a country like India where there's a lot of income disparity, I think yes.
So taking his question forward, rich people paying more tax. So there is a term in taxation for that. So what is that?
Surcharge and cess, if I'm not wrong.
No.
Progressive tax.
Progressive
tax.
And what is the opposite of
Regressive.
Regressive taxation. So can you give us some example of progressive tax and a regressive tax?
Regressive, I think progressive, there's a cess that people from higher income brackets pay. And regressive, I'm not sure.
See, direct taxes, such as the income tax, are progressive in nature. So as the
Indirect-
income level increases,
The
the
taxation
tax
goes
percentage goes up. On the other hand, something like GST,
flat rates for
so
everyone.
it's flat rate. Okay. In this year's budget, there is a provision for safe harbor related to IT industries. So what is that?
A safe harbor is where, can I explain it through an example? Sure. Let's say Meta, for instance. If there is a piece of content that is posted on Meta and it is, let's say, not appropriate for people to see, the government will hold the person who's uploading the content responsible and not Meta as a company. So in that way, Meta has a safe harbor in the country.
No, but what has that got to do with taxation?
I think they've changed the safe harbor limits from 400 crores turnover to a higher limit.
So what is supply side economics?
Supply side economics would entail raw materials and other costs that would go into manufacturing goods and services.
So one school of thought in economics says that simply get rid of income taxes. We don't need any taxes. So what is your view on that?
I would like to disagree on this. Owing to the fact that taxes are a major source of revenue to the government, there are a lot of services that people in countries like India cannot afford on their own. And there has to be a certain amount of amenities or facilities given to people on behalf of the government. And I think income tax is a majority source for all of these things to happen. And if income tax is not there, a lot of people will be in danger of basic amenities. They'll be deprived of it.
So what do you think is the contribution of income tax to government's total tax collection?
It's approximately 60%.
60.
Yeah.
And remaining 40% comes from?
Issuing bonds, capital receipts basically.
So capital receipts comes under capital account. I'm asking about revenue account.
Okay.
For government taxation.
Okay, so income tax, and then there are indirect taxes like GST, and there is also duty on certain goods and services. So that would be the remaining 40%.
So what are the effects of fiscal deficit on economy?
Fiscal deficits, I think according to the current budget, they have set a target of 4.3% of the GDP. And a fiscal deficit means is the percentage of money that the government is borrowing. And if that fiscal deficit goes beyond a particular limit, the government has to borrow more from the public and from the markets, which leaves scarce resources for private institutions to borrow money, which in turn leads to higher prices everywhere because there's scarcity of capital and money in the market.
Are there any athletes from India participating in the Winter Olympics?
I'm not sure.
Are you aware that Winter Olympics is starting?
No.
Is there any difference in Summer Olympics and Winter Olympics?
If I'm taking a guess, the games would be very different.
Okay. How different? Okay, feel free to guess.
Okay, so winter would entail sports like skiing and stuff related to snow, whereas summer would be water sports.
If I'm not
When was the last Summer Olympics?
I have no clue.
Were there any particular Indians that you remember who maybe won medals in the last Olympics?
Last Olympics, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but there's this female boxer, Lavina, if I'm not wrong, who's won.
Okay. Apart from running and reading, what do you do in your free time?
I like to cook food for myself and enjoy it with some documentary.
For yourself.
Yeah.
Why not for others?
I don't mind cooking for others, of course, but Yeah, it's basically cooking food for myself and then watching something nice that I like.
Okay, all right. So, why do you want to do an MBA?
I think in hindsight, I've realized that what I used to do for these committees is something top level management people do for their companies, but I used to do it at a much smaller scale. And I think I have the caliber to do something like this at a larger scale, and an MBA will provide me opportunities to get there eventually.
So, you're going to equate, not in the same scale, what companies, let's say the people who are sitting at the top in the companies do to run the company successfully with what you did to run your whatever your fest or your clubs well. Are you drawing parallels between the two?
Yeah, can I explain how? So in Rotaract, we have this um, that there are multiple clubs, Rotaract clubs in the district. They're institution based, they're community based, and at the end of the year, there's this event night where the best club is awarded. So in a way, I was competing with other Rotaract clubs maybe, and also with other committees that were present in the college, which is similar to what companies do. They compete with other industries.
Okay. Yeah. And by doing that, you realize that, okay, I need to do anything.
Yeah, in hindsight, I'm realizing that that is something that I really enjoyed and did feel like work to me.
And I'm guessing you would do MBA in finance.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you see yourself, say, 5 to 10 years after that?
After MBA in finance, I think I do have a lot of interest in finance, but I would like to also explore business consultancy or management consultancy. And I see myself becoming a consultant working with multiple clients from different domains 5 or 10 years down the line.
Okay. But why consulting? I mean, why not finance? Considering you have done your bachelor's in accounting and finance, don't you think you're more suited to work in core finance roles?
I agree, but consultancy is something that needs cross domain expertise, and finance, though I understand it, I think I still have the drive to understand how different factors like sales, marketing, operations, supply, all of it comes together to run a single business. And an MBA will provide that deeper understanding of other areas of business as well.
What do you consider as the biggest area of improvement for yourself?
Area of improvement for myself would be there are times when I tend to work with a lot of intensity for an extended period, and I think I need to be measured in terms of efforts that I put in so that I don't burn out, because after the burnout, the time that I take again to recover and come back on track could have been it's like a efficiency drainer for me.
I didn't understand.
Okay, so let's say I'm preparing for something or I'm working on a project. So there comes a time when at times I work with a lot of intensity for an extended period without breaks, or maybe taking my mind off it, which leads me to get saturated, and then I need to take some time off. So I think I need to put in measured efforts.
But don't you think that is how most projects get done? So there is a limited project timeline that is defined. Everybody is working within that timeline, and then after that they take a break.
Fair, but I don't think that is sustainable for me. I need to try to balance it out.
Okay. So when you look at consulting,
Yeah.
most consultants would be putting, say, 70, 80 hours a week,
Yeah.
maybe 15, 16 hours a day kind of a thing. Don't you think that will also lead to burnout?
That will, of course, do, but I'm looking at various places that I can improve my well-being outside of work.
Okay.
Let's say the burnout thing happens even after working for, let's say, 8 or 9 hours or 12 hours during the day. The remaining time, I have to get my mind on something else. And if work constantly goes on there, it is not efficient for my brain to function for the next day. So I think I'm finding some things that intrigue me outside of work as well.
You pursue music. What kind of music?
I listen to all kinds of music, but I am inclined towards Indian classical music specifically.
That's because you're learning tabla, or no? You're interested in music. That's why you're learning tabla, or it's other way around.
No, I'm interested in music. That is why I learned tabla.
But why tabla specifically? Why did you pick this as an instrument?
Okay, so it's a personal story. I come from Mumbai. The Ganpati festival is quite popular here, and there's this friend of my dad who used to play these drums during the aarti, which I found fascinating as a young child, and I used to try to imitate it with bins and cans at home. And then gradually my parents thought that, okay, this guy might have some potential, and I think classical music is a good way to start with.
And this must have been when you were in school.
Yeah, back in school.
So then why did you take so much time to do your first level certification, which is Prarambhik?
While I do enjoy doing music, I don't want to pursue it professionally. So I take it easy, and then I take my time while preparing for it. I don't follow deadlines.
Okay. All right. Done from it.
Done.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Vedant, your interview is over. Now we'll begin with the feedback. So, how do you think it went?
It was good, but I think I need to be well versed with a lot of answers.
Yes. One problem with some of your answers is that they were too long. Yeah. So you have to make your answers more to the point and more crisp in nature. So you may want to write the points in a bullet point format. Then what all interesting points that you want to highlight. Eh? For example, in your introduction, you talked about so many things. Like you are a tabla player, that is fine, but you read non-fiction. Then you also talk a little bit about your short-term goal and then why MBA. Okay. Not why MBA, but you mentioned that I want to go for MBA. Okay. And all that. Okay. Now, the idea of introduction is not to give them a laundry list of 15 different things. Because there is a danger that in case they pick up some minor point in your profile and take the interview in that direction, you lose all the control. Right? And we did not cut you short, but what if we had? In that case, some of the points that you possibly wanted to make couldn't have been made. Right? So make your answers crisp and then make a bullet point list. Identify what all points you want to highlight first. The point should be interesting enough. And the ones you can get into a meaningful conversation with the panelist.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, you want to highlight only those points which you can handle well. Okay. Otherwise, it is like inviting trouble for yourself. Don't do that.
Fair.
Then the question about the budget, right? So you mentioned that government is included some proposals for giving economy a boost or something like that. But after that, you mentioned infrastructure. And after that, your answer again went into a completely different territory. You talked about orange economy. Then also there are no changes in direct taxation and all. So what is expected from you is when you make a statement like government has included some proposals for giving economy a boost. What proposals are they? In what way do you think it will give a boost to economy? You don't have to be an expert in this. You don't have to know all the 100, 200, whatever number of proposals are there. But only some proposals that you can talk about well. Okay. Then when it comes to the safe harbor, that term is related to taxation. Okay. Of course, it is also used in some other areas, but specifically for taxation. And you mentioned the meta. So if someone posts some comment, some controversial comment, and you can't hold meta responsible, that is a different story.
Okay.
And then you brought in that aspect of increasing the turnover limit up to 2,000 crores. So you're trying to relate two different things.
Okay.
See, the idea of safe harbor in taxation is that when it comes to, say, suppose there is a foreign company that has subsidiary in India, okay, say Oracle. So Oracle India is getting some, is buying some license or some software from its parent company. Okay? So the amount that it pays to the parent company, so that comes under a term that is called transfer pricing. And many times tax authorities raise a question on transfer pricing because you have not really paid the right price so as to reduce your tax burden.
Okay.
So safe harbor is a term up to 2,000 crores. This is this will be applicable as per budget proposal only to IT companies. So IT company up to 2,000 crore turnover. So whatever transfer pricing they show in their books, tax authorities will not question it.
Got it.
That is transfer pricing. And that is, safe harbor.
Safe.
And then you said 60% of total government tax collection comes from income tax. No. So there is GST, there is corporate tax, there is income tax. So corporate tax would be about 15-20% less than income tax, and GST almost equivalent amount of corporate tax.
Okay.
The central government's portion, state government portion is different. Right? Plus there is a excise duty on liquor and petroleum products, and there is customs duty. So considering all that, the contribution of income tax is about 20 to 25%, not more than that. Okay. Then a couple of times you use some informal words, such as my friend's dad. This guy has potential.
Fair.
So
Your parents will not say this guy has potential, right?
So just be mindful because this is not a conversation with friends.
Fair. Get it.
Then about your weakness. You mentioned that if I work for 12 hours, I will need some, I'll need to do something to refreshen myself. Otherwise, I can't get back to my routine. Now, in a B school, 12 hours is a minimum you're allowed to work.
Yeah.
Now, they can ask you a question. Then how do we trust that you will be able to work the next day?
Fair.
So, come up with a better sellable weakness, not this. I'm not telling you to lie as such,
Yeah.
but be politically correct.
Okay.
And one last point of the, two last points. This supply side economics. The idea of supply side economics is that, say, if you plot government tax revenue on the y-axis and effective taxation rate on the x-axis, and if you plot a curve, it is like a bell-shaped curve. And if you are to the right of the top, in that case, even if you cut the tax, the government tax collection increases. Why? Because people have more money in their hands, they spend, and that gives boost to economy as a whole. Businesses get more orders. That increases the corporate tax. So that concept was used in the US in 1980s. That is called supply side economics. And also, when you talked about that Olympic, you mentioned the word a female boxer. So my strong suggestion is avoid word female.
Okay.
Because many people can take exception.
Fair.
Right?
Okay, so as Girish mentioned, right, the introduction was very long. And that happened because you brought in a lot of things which were not necessary in the introduction. For example, you talked about some, I realized that there is like process behind how these numbers are derived, and that is why I want to do my MBA in the short term. Then I want to do consulting, finance, etc. So all of that is why MBA. And why MBA is not to be mentioned in Tell Me Something About Yourself. So in your Tell Me Something About Yourself, you could have added a little bit of achievements, if any. So from your college days, if there are any achievements, maybe in your academics, if there are any achievements, you can add those.
Right.
One thing that we didn't ask you was why didn't you take up a job? Okay, so maybe you didn't spot it because the year has not been mentioned. So when we looked at this for the very first time, we assumed that you're in the final year. But if, of course, they will have it, so they will spot it. And they're going to ask you, why didn't you work? If anyway you want to work in the corporate sector post-MBA, you could have taken up a job after graduation. So just be prepared for that answer as well. Of course, that should not be mentioned explicitly in the interview, correct? In the introduction. Then views on budget, etc. was, I think, okay. As Girish has already given the feedback, so I'll not repeat that. Direct tax, income tax, I don't think 0.5%. It's not that low. I think some 1.5% or 1.6% of the people pay taxes, roughly, not 0.5.
0.5 is too low.
0.5 is too low. So then, speaking of current affairs, so in current affairs, I think you need to brush up, right? So it happened with TEDx, it happened with Olympics as well, right? So though there aren't many Indians who are going to be part of Winter Olympics, you should know what Winter Olympics is. But at least you took a guess that the difference between Summer Olympics and Winter Olympics is going to be the nature of games that are part of it. TEDx, again, just look at what TED stands for, right? So then we spoke about dopamine. So don't you think while running, if you listen to music, that is distraction? And you said you should not have a lot of distraction. So there's too much distraction and you want to reduce that. If you run and then you listen to music, you're adding to the distraction in a way. So just check what exactly you're going to mention. Just be clear on how dopamine works and why you want to have a detox, right? If it is not good for you. Safe harbor, he has given a feedback. Then so why MBA? Again, now you said that companies, the top level management, what they do was kind of similar, not at the same scale to what I did as part of Rotaract Club members. I don't think you should be doing that sort of a comparison, right? Because the scale is going to be like dramatically different. So that is why you don't compare it with the top level management and other companies. You just talk about your own experience.
Okay.
That in your own capacity, what have you learned about management as a discipline while working on XYZ things that you did in your life, and how that pushed you to understand that you need to learn it in a structured manner. And that is why you need to go to a B school. Then I asked you about specialization, and then you said finance and consulting. I'll explore consulting also. And then came that area of improvement, where you said that it is, if I work on something for a long time, then it leads to burnout, so I need to cool down. But that, and as he also rightly mentioned, right, B school itself is going to be a very hectic thing.
Fair.
And you should be ready for that experience. So you have to think of a better area of improvement for sure. Okay. Then I also have written that guy thing. So a little bit informal. It wasn't too much. So one or two places it happened, but otherwise it was okay. And overall it's fine, but you need to smile also a little bit. It came across as if for some reason you have become nervous. Maybe it could be because of the setting. But you're a decent candidate from your academic perspective. So everything is 80 plus. So pretty sorted on that front. But get your career path plan also in place. So if you're going to say consulting, you need to be in a position to answer questions on consulting.
Yeah.
I think at this point of time for you, it will be a little easier to stick to finance.
Okay.
Considering your background. I'm not saying don't say consulting, but then this can't be your area of improvement.
Getting it.
Correct. And if consulting, then why consulting?
Yeah.
So have you had experiences in the past which have pushed you in that direction that, okay, consulting might be suitable for me? Do I have those skills that are required? Do you have any internship that you have done?
No.
So it will be more difficult for you to then justify because you haven't worked in the corporate sector.
Fair.
So without having any exposure, they will say, okay, tell me what happens in consulting. And you should be able to explain. And then they will ask, okay, if this happens, how did you discover that you will be able to do a good job of this? Correct. Versus you say, okay, I have got the elementary knowledge over the initiation in finance, and now I want to take that interest to the next level. by studying MBA finance and I want to have a career in finance. So that will be slightly easier as a story to justify
Fair.
rather than the consulting story. Right? So just take care of these things and current affairs we'll have to work on a little bit.
Okay.
See, whenever a question is asked to you, right, you have to understand why the panel is asking you that question. So what is the crux of it? So when he said your view on budget, so you have to give points that are more important than the points that are of lower importance, I would say. So give the punchline, give the most important things that have been introduced, rather than talking about some specific things. You spoke about some animation and all of that. Not a priority item, I would say. Okay. So focus more on the priority items in anything that is asked. So even when he asked about, you said surcharge and cess. You could have, I think you're not even sure of the answers. That's why you said something and you just left it at that. There you could have brought in slightly more depth to show that, okay, you know about it. So what's the difference between, say, a surcharge and a cess?
Cess is specifically like education or health, while as
So
a
you could have
surcharge
mentioned
is-
that.
Yeah.
Then example of progressive and regressive taxes, you could have explained that as well. So somewhere I felt that the knowledge of finance concepts also has to be strengthened further by studying a little bit more. Maybe it's been a while since you last studied, right? So maybe 7-8 months. So go back to your books a little bit, go through your favorite subjects, and of course the recent things that have happened, right? Otherwise it was okay. Okay, all the best.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.